Welcome back, everybody. My name is All Fun and Games. I stream every day on Twitch TV, and I also make fun little videos here on YouTube. Well, it's been a while since I've talked about this, so I kind of want to briefly go back into it. I did not expect my previous videos to do so well when it came to people having issues with DST, but it turns out that a lot of people do. So here we are. We're basically back to square one, where I'm going to go briefly, as fast as I can, explaining individually all of the ways that people have kind of commented on my videos asking, Travis, can you help me? All Fun and Games, I'm having issues. And the greater majority of you actually have kind of given me a few things to talk about. So I appreciate it, and I'm glad that I was able to help you. And the cool thing is that making videos like that have also encouraged other people to help other people. So sometimes you see a comment like, I'm lagging and this is happening, and I might not have encountered it, but somebody else did, and they're like, by the way, the fix for this was blank. So let's talk about that. So in my previous videos, I've kind of showcased a few different things, but now I'm going to consolidate them into an updated 2022 version where I kind of showcase and talk about a few different ways on how to easily fix that. So if you don't know and Don't Starve Together, it is a very small game, but it can easily cause lag. Now, the greater reason for this is because Don't Starve Together, although it is an older game, it's kind of got a little bit of an update recently to offer 64-bit version of Don't Starve Together. What this does is it helps utilize your processor and all your parts in your computer kind of behind the scenes. It's kind of a architecture is what they would call it on PC, where it just uses your processor and all these other parts that use 64-bit instead of 32-bit. And nonetheless, long story short, it just helps the game run better. However, if you have an older computer or if your laptop is using Intel HD graphics, or long story short, you don't really know what kind of specs your computers have, it could still run very low end and cause a little bit of lag. And this is completely common. So if you're sitting in the category going, I don't know what to do, I went to my options, I did this, and I've tried everything, well, hopefully this video can help. And I'm going to kind of walk through exactly how and what to do in order to help you reduce lag in DST. Now, don't get discouraged if your game is lagging and you have a really high-end computer, because sometimes it's just a simple setting that could be causing it. Sometimes it's internet related. There's so many different reasons why you can cause lag in this game. Now, here's hoping down the road that DST eventually does do a little bit more upgrading, because I know people constantly complain about the game being capped at 60 FPS. And that is something that I will discuss at the very end of this video as to why Don't Starve Together is capped at 60 FPS. Okay, so let's go down each individual things slowly, but also kind of a little bit quick, just so I don't make this video super long and drawn out. The most easiest and common way of lagging Don't Starve Together is by adding 575 mods, aka just making a ton of mods. Now, in Don't Starve Together, mods are awesome. They make the game, in my opinion, the game is awesome as it is, but they also make the game kind of more enjoyable if you want to try different things. Teach their own. If you like using mods or you don't like using mods, that's completely up to you. Everybody deserves to play the game the way that they like. But if you are lagging a lot, I would highly suggest stop using mods. Now, there are mods that will say things like, increase performance or decrease entities or all that stuff. For now, if you are lagging in DST and you have been using a lot of mods, try using no mods. So that's step one. Go modless for a little while. See if your game still lags. If it does, let's go on and move to step two. I mentioned Don't Starve Together 64-bit or 32-bit. The way to switch between the two is go to your Steam, not on the bottom right corner of your computer where you normally would, but on your actual Steam library. Double-click DST with the game closed. It'll prompt up, and every single time you click on that, it'll actually ask you, do you want 32-bit or 64-bit? If you go into your quick launcher, which is on the bottom right corner of your computer, and you right click it or you click on DST, it's going to automatically load whatever version you loaded before. So right now I'm in the 64-bit version of DST, but if I went to my Steam library and I clicked it under there and I double clicked it, it's going to ask me again. Okay, so what's the difference between 32-bit and 64? Well, 64-bit, as you can see here, runs better for my computer because it just allows more RAM to be used and it allows different parts of your processor to be used. 32-bit is limited for basically computers that I would suggest to be like on a low-end laptop or maybe a low-end desktop. So really you just have to find out what works best for you. And you can obviously do that by, like I said before, click on your Steam library, click and pick and choose whichever you like. Now, next is if you are severely lagging in DST and you really want to reduce the amount of situations that you have for with lagging and all that stuff, you can go into graphics under options and click on netbook mode. It'll tell you exactly what it does, kind of. Reduces the game's update frequency, only recommended for minimum spec computers. Update frequency. So basically what it does in a nutshell is it limits the amount of stuff that's on the screen, but it also will cause a little bit of lag. So if not lag, it'll look glitchy nonetheless. Now, if you have a low-end computer, it actually will not look glitchy. What will happen is it'll actually look better, because the way that it works with netbooks, or I don't know why they call it netbook mode, to be honest with you, because netbooks were an old technology laptop that was basically a tiny little pre-Chromebook nonetheless. But anyways, they refer to it as that because it does exactly that. It limits the amount of stuff that shows up on the screen. It also basically works in a way of basically focusing what's on just your field of vision, instead of how it is in normal DST, where you can obviously, have a ton of entities spawn in, you can zoom out and out and all that stuff, and things load on your screen a lot more. So it does help computers that are a little bit low end. So if you haven't tried that, I would suggest trying that. There's also other things you can do by, playing around with your small textures, texture streaming, blah, 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 blah. All these other things, you can disable them or enable them, whatever you'd like to do. Nonetheless, I have tested the bloom effect and all that stuff. It doesn't really play too much in performance, but if it works for you, it works for you. But this is definitely the first thing you should try, netbook mode for sure. And now, checking your computer specs. In a previous video where I showcased exactly how to go to Can You Run It, if you don't know how to check your computer specs, you can go to canyourunnit.com, or basically type in Can You Run It into Google, click on the link, put in Don't Starve Together into the game, and let it run its course. I've showed that in a previous video. I'll link that video in my description. Basically comparing your specs to what the recommended for Don't Starve Together is on Steam, comparable to what is, the recommended or the minimum requirements. That way you know if your game is meant to be ran, or if Don't Starve Together is meant to be ran on your PC. Make sure you are trying a solo world instead of having friends join. So if you go to host a game and you are immediately lagging right away, you probably know it's not best to probably host a friend until you figure that out. If you are hosting a game, you're running fine, your friend joins in, and they're instantly lagging, well, then you might have an issue going on with either your computer can't really support somebody else in the game. For example, if your internet connection is bad, or it's more related to actually your computer hosting. So basically, when you host a game, you're going to get a green bar across your screen at the top that's going to indicate the server connection, so to speak. But that, like I said, that means two different things. One means that, yes, your internet could be really bad and it's causing lag, but I'm going to explain to you how to kind of figure out if it's your internet or if it's actually just your computer, because a lot of people, especially in my previous video, were very happy to know that it's not always to do with internet connection. And a lot of people think that it is, and they go, oh, thanks, just by you connecting, you have slow internet and now you're causing me to be slow. That does not have any effect on anything. Okay. So if you yourself, as in the person who is hosting the game, is playing and your game is running perfectly fine and you're running around and you're having a fun time and you're clicking on things and you're attacking things and your connection is showing green. Okay, so I'm running around, I'm attacking things, I'm smashing down pig houses and gathering resources. My friend joins in, boom. Joe joins in the server, connection is green. 10 minutes later, connection is red for Joe, and host performance goes down to red. However, I'm still over here and I'm still able to make things, gather things, and I'm not lagging at all. What that actually is that's your computer not able to actually host the game because your processor or something on your computer is probably a little bit limited. So you're probably wondering, well, why would this show up as red if it's telling me that this is supposed to be my ping? Well, no, this is basically indicating the performance of your computer. So it has no relations to actually the ping. So I hope that down the road, Clay actually changes this to make it 2 bars. So one for how good your computer is hosting and running the game, and one for the actual connection of your server. So that way it's less confusing, because people see this go to red and they're like, oh, sorry, my internet must be acting up today. When in reality, it's just their computer that's acting up. Okay, so if somebody connects to your game, they're immediately red, you go to red, you're not lagging, you're still chopping trees, you're attacking things perfectly fine. Well, then in that case, you know that it's just at that point going to be their computer connection, or sorry, their internet connection or your internet connection that's causing the issue. Now, if you are actually going through the process of playing and you start to stutter. You're stuttering around, stutter, 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 and somebody's connected and they're doing the same thing too. Immediately at that point, it 1000% is to do with your computer not able to host and play at the same time. So basically, you're not able to support more than one player in the server, and that's if you are lagging and glitching around. Okay, so what to kind of notice that, like I said, to talk about it again, is if somebody connects to your computer or connects to your server or whatever it might be, they immediately go into the red and they're lagging and you're walking around perfectly fine. That means that your internet connection most likely is not good, and however your computer is perfectly fine for you to play on it. So that's just it's kind of a little bit complicated. You're probably like, what? Like, I don't get it. So they're lagging, so it's my internet connection, but I'm still playing fine. Yes, because you're playing off of your own connection. So the game is not, you're not connecting to a server. If you were connecting to a dedicated server, this would be a whole other conversation, but you're hosting it yourself. So because you're hosting it yourself, that means that obviously you're sitting there and you're playing on your own computer on your own connection. So even if you went ahead and you unplugged your internet from your computer or disabled your internet in any which way, you could still play Don't Starve Together. So everything would still act the same, respond the same, all that stuff. But if somebody's connected to your game, they're immediately red and they're immediately walking around glitching and you're walking around perfectly fine, most likely it's either their connection to the internet or your connection to the internet, because that's telling you that your game is running fine on your end and everything's perfectly normal and everything's running fine and your PC can handle it and you're able to actually chop stuff down and blah, 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 but they're lagging. Now, like I said, if they join in your game and they're lagging and you start to stutter, well, most likely you're unable to actually host two people in the same server. Maybe your computer just can't handle it. Okay, so just an easy way, or hopefully an easy way of trying to remember exactly how that is. So normally you'll kind of get this. Like, so sometimes I'll have 6 or 7 people join in my server and 2 of them are walking around lagging like crazy. Everybody else is perfectly fine. Immediately we know that it's definitely their connection. Now, like I said, sometimes this will shoot down to red or amber and it's kind of a little bit confusing. You're probably like, well, is it internet connection or not? You'll know right away. Like I said, if it's internet connection related, then your character will still be moving around perfectly fine, and maybe like I said, maybe it is your connection, maybe it's their connection, it's hard to say. But if you have 2 or 3 people connected, even one person, and you begin to lag and you're stuttering and you're unable to attack butterflies or whatever you're trying to attack normally, then most likely you're not able to host more than one person on your computer, no matter if you have the best internet in the world or not. Okay, so now that is a little bit complicated because other things can come into play. For example, if you have something running in the background or whatever else as well. But nonetheless, if you want to watch more in-depth videos, I will post all the other videos links in the description. So if you want to watch a more in-depth where I pinpoint specific things, I will post those videos as well. Next up is reducing entities. So when you go to create a new world, you're going to have a few different options now. So they went ahead and they changed the world settings and world generation. So now you can go into your actual settings and go, okay, look, I don't want to have 4 trillion, bees spawn in or a bunch of hounds or whatever. So if you are starting to lag a ton, the first thing you should do is literally disable caves. So if you are lagging in DST, and you're having nothing but lag, and you've tried all the steps that I've already given you before, remove the caves. Removing the caves from the server will obviously make it so you can't do everything that Don't Starve Together is meant to do, but nonetheless, it will make your computer run a lot better. So try that right away and see if that helps you. Okay, if you want to leave the caves on and you're still having a little bit of lag, you can remove entities. Now, what I'm saying, like, remove or limit entities, okay? So if you have a bunch of killer bees, specifically killer bee biomes, which can cause a crazy amount of lag in DST, you can turn it to none and or make it little. So basically on your map, you're going to have very limited areas with killer bees, and if they are there might only be 1 or 2 nests, which is kind of ideal. To be honest with you, it's not necessarily recommended, but it will reduce a lot of lag. And this goes for anything. Spiders, blah, 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 all that other stuff, trees, etc., etc., etc. Because keep in mind, your game is consistently loading in the background because it has to load when people are exploring the biomes. So if you have a friend and they're going into the killer bee biome every 3 seconds and that's causing you to lag, well, maybe you should reduce that, and you can do that for pretty much anything inside of DST. Okay. And the last thing to talk about, which I promised that I would talk about, is why DST is capped at 60 FPS. So a lot of people ask me, well, when I go into the game options and I actually see my FPS in the top right corner, it says 60 FPS and it's capped at that. That's because, like I said, Don't Starve Together or Clay is trying to make it so if they made it go any higher than that, they would have to put extra options inside of DST. And unfortunately, it is the way it is. So when you play at 60 FPS capped, it makes your game basically, if your PC can handle it, run fairly smooth. But of course, if you have a 144 hertz monitor, or if you want to have more than 100 or than 60 FPS, there's no way of doing that. So keep in mind, this game is meant to run on semi-okay computers to very high-end computers, and of course, the higher-end computer, the more people you can support on your server. It does get a little bit complicated, of course. Like I said, if you're going to host a game, that's you hosting it from your own computer, so it gets a little bit complicated for why people might be lagging. But those two reasons are it exclusively. So like I said, if you don't remember, I will have my other video that'll basically explain in depth, but I think I've kind of pinpointed, like I said, if it's their connection or if it's your connection or if it's actually just your computer can't support more than you on the server. If you're going to join a server, so if you're going to go to browse games and you're going to browse around on how to connect to a server, that's a whole different story. If you connect to a server and you're lagging at that point, it's most likely your internet connection and not the server. Now, keep in mind, there's different servers that are hosted from people's computers or from an actual dedicated server company. So a lot still comes into play of why you might be lagging, but here's hoping that this video has helped you in a way. If it has, make sure you leave a like and comment down below. If it hasn't, I am more than willing to help you with any issues that you're having. So please post down below what you're experiencing and when, and etc., and I'll try to do my best. But in 2022, I decided that I wanted to do a little bit of an update on here because people have asked me numerous times, well, can you please include this in your next video? So I went ahead and I did. I took all the points from my previous videos and put them into here. And like I said, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. But thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.